Good evening and welcome to the Laugh Monkey Music Show. Today we have Keith St. John on. Keith, how you doing tonight, man?
What's going on? I'm doing
Awesome.
great, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Keith has been in a bunch of bands. He's kind of the go-to singer. There's a few guys out there, the go-to. They need a singer. He's the man. But you've also been in Montrose. You just work with Nazareth. Your biggest stuff is right now. You're doing Kingdom Come. Is what you're probably promoting, right? So Burning. Let's talk about that too. Are you still doing that with Doug too? Is that gonna be also a side piece? I mean, because you guys have been doing it for years. Are you going to keep that going? I mean, it's a great band.
Yeah, it's a really great band. We've been through a few different rhythm section lineups over the years,
Right.
which is expected. We started this band in 1999, Burning Rain.
Yep.
And that goes back right to the time when I was writing and writing songs, and I met Ronnie Montrose, but I never really even knew that much about the older Montrose band at that point, because I came out here up the East Coast, and I've been working with Doug and putting our first album together when I met Ronnie. But I guess my point is that was before Doug joined Dio and before I joined Montrose, when we started Burning Rain. And when we started it, it seemed like we might be able to keep it going year to year and just keep making a record every year. But we both got so busy after Dio. Doug did Whitesnake, and while I was doing Montrose for 12 years, I got
only your first
a good call.
Yeah, which you probably should be getting an award for being one of the longest members. Actually, we were the longest staying member with him.
Longest singer with Ronnie, for sure. Yeah,
there's got to be some award there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you know Ronnie well, and he didn't really have a large circle, intimate circle of close people. So, but the people that he did have are really solid, and he was really solid with everybody. And so I have like a very long-standing relationship with a lot of people when I first got into Ronnie's circle. And any one of those people will tell you he's a really, really special and sweet, sweet, sweet guy. And he'd take the shirt off his back, and a dear guy, a dear friend. But he had some issues with singers, and
right, that's the funny part. No judgment on my part. I didn't know.
Old school stuff, old school playground stuff, man. My bat's bigger than yours, and this, and I managed to skate around that.
I'm just acknowledging the fact that you are a long-term member, so clearly there was a chemistry that worked. I like to tend to focus on the positive. So that's a very cool thing you got to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, our chemistry was ridiculous. It was, it was psychic. And Ronnie liked to do kind of like what Led Zeppelin put off that they did do, back in the day when they made that movie Song Remains the Same, and it looks like it's all very spontaneous jams all the time. Ronnie actually did that. We went into each song each night not knowing exactly where it was going, and that was cool. I love that part of it.
It must have been scary kind of
to me. I like that.
Yeah.
No, not at all. I'm what they call a fire sign. So I like being on the spot. I like in the moment. I like someone throwing a curveball at me. I can't organize shit, but
Well, but also seems
throw
like
me off a cliff without a parachute, and I'll make it down.
But musically, it does seem like that too, though, because you have your hands on like a lot of different projects, and kind of charmed in a way. It's really good because the music is just kind of odd at times and not forgiving. But you've really had your hands on it with a lot of really good artists and continue to keep working on a lot of good projects,
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm blessed to have met a few really, really talented, a lot of really, really talented and inspired people, who I consider true artists. And I feel super lucky and blessed that, somehow the universe made our.
Yeah.
Whether or not I was having my eye on the music industry the whole time or whatnot, it came as kind of a hippie, and I love the experience, kind of a flower child kind of guy. So, but to counter that comment, I met lots of great people, and I'm really blessed to have worked with with
Just
many
as a
of
side
the
note,
greats.
what is your other side thing besides music? Like, what do you like to do besides music? Just the little side thing now. Like, what's your thing? So, do you like cooking, art, building? What is your
Well, once again, fire sign, man, and not to put the astrology thing out there because
you
I
like to
know it
start
can be a little
fires?
trippy sounding or whatever, but yeah, exactly. I do actually like bonfires and all that stuff too at night, but that has nothing to do with it. The astrological thing, when you're a fire sign, that just means you're very changeable. You
Right.
can chameleon a lot more than, say the earth sign or the
Mhm.
water sign or the whatever. And, I have not only the sun and fire, but a lot of my planets. So I like variety. I like getting up and going, man. I'll like I said, drop me out of a helicopter over the ocean. I'm happy with that. Physical outdoor things I like, skiing,
Yeah.
snowboarding, mountain climbing, any kind of stuff. I like learning new instruments. And, I'm into spiritual things, meditation. And, I've had the good fortune and the opportunity to meet a whole community of friends from Japan. We're really into the ancient Japanese, more spiritual
That's
arts
cool.
and healing and meditation and all that stuff. And over the years, I've been very interested in the metaphysical and qigong healing and
That's some great
shiatsu
stuff.
and all these kind of
That's great.
things.
I took kung fu for many years from
Oh,
master
did
from
you?
China, and so the family had a lot of other side things. It was a big family run business, so it was more than just martial arts. You know what I mean? It was
That's
true, you know, Southern
yeah.
Chinese fighting and grappling, but it wasn't just it was the arts. It was the whole thing. It's a great thing. So I hear you. It's much respect to that. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool. It,
It's so good for your being, your spirit, and your body to balance all that. And I've learned from some older cats. Not all of them are still with us, but I've had some older, really close friends who were Japanese that taught me a lot about the other side and so forth. So
there's a
a
lot to
big
learn there.
interest of
Yeah, it's
mine.
pretty awesome. Well, it's interesting because, like I said, with being a musician and an artist, I always want to know like what their other thing is because usually there's usually another side thing that an artist does that they're also really good at. I mean, it's like usually it was something to really, their other thing, their other passion that they do. So it's always interesting to hear
Well, let's
where
see.
it
I
is.
mean, I owned a dance and music academy in LA for about 8 years, and
Oh, that's pretty.
and it was on a heater from month one. I think some of it is I just like the challenge. At the end of the first month, it was in the black, and it just got set up at the right time and had the right instructors, and it just it's kind of a challenge to me once again putting the business together and going out and saying I can do that and then doing it, and then later on
That's
I
quite a
actually
business.
gave it
People, that's
away.
their goal for their whole life to do that, and you kind of just did it as a thing. You know what I mean? Some people,
It's sometimes I think about those things and go, man, I need to settle down and I should have, just hung with that, but another part of me just
maybe that's
can't.
what it
Another
is.
part of me,
Maybe because you weren't worried, you took chances. Whereas somebody who's worried about it for their career, they won't take the chance. You don't get success sometimes if you don't take the chance. Maybe you feel like I got nothing to lose. You know,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
if you see a mountain over there, some people got to go climb it, and I know a lot of other guys and gals like that, and I'm one of them. So,
that. So with Kingdom Come, so let's talk about where you're at and what's going on with you guys.
well, I got it back a little bit, just backstory.
Yeah, please.
When I first got into LA, I was doing my own band, St. John, and
Mhm.
it was going great, and we were getting a lot of offers, but I didn't think the whole rock thing was gonna end. I figured I had a lot of time, and things felt good, and people were treating me great, and I was still building the band and getting the sound I wanted and stuff. And on a side note with that, I actually have the original guitar player from St. John from back then, and he's even a bigger badass than he was back then. And we're making a record now with that to be released when I
Nice.
think the time is right. But I don't want to get on that tangent too much. Uh, so, but it didn't take too long before I started getting calls from I was in town and
Mhm.
liking the sound of my voice on whatever demos were floating around that they heard or this and that. And so I got sidetracked away from my own thing, away from St. John, and but like I said, I'm a flower child. So I said, okay, man, I'll try that, you know. And I met some really great people, and it started relationships with people I still have good relationships with now. One of the guys who called me was James Kotak,
Hmm.
who had been at Kingdom Come, and they had that amazing run from like 88, 89, 90, doing the Monsters of Rock tour.
Right.
Um, the first Kingdom Come record was famously broke records for being pre-shipped gold,
Yeah.
based on, you know, some of the pre-rolls of the first single that they were releasing. And you know, they did their first tour with Van Halen and the Scorpions and them and Dokken, and
Yeah.
it was a huge thing. It was a flame that, you know, that burned really hot, and it burned fast. And then the sort of grunge thing came, because they only caught the tail end of that, you know. And so they were all doing new projects in the early 90s. And James
Yeah.
started calling me and asking me if I'd come check out some stuff. And I had already gotten busy with Sun King, which is a band I did with Rudy Sarzo and John Five at
Yeah.
that time, Giant. And over the years, James called me a couple more times, and I was usually busy and doing this, but we hung out and we became buddies. And then he joined the Scorpions for
A
many,
while.
many years. I don't know how many, more
That's
than
a sweet
15
gig.
years.
Yeah, that's a sweet gig
Yeah.
for him.
Great gig. One of my favorite bands too.
Mine,
So, you
mine
know,
too.
it was fun to get into shows, you know, when they were around, and I knew James and stuff. And so anyway, fast forward past a whole bunch of more stories in history. And, you know, James called me a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe, and said, hey, I want to put the original lineup of Kingdom Come back together. Since the original days, they've never been together.
Yeah.
The singer kind of did something in Europe with some guys from Germany, where he's from, and that lineup was never seen together again. And just reintroduce it and get back into it, and we'll do all the old hits and whatnot, and write some new songs and stuff. And we talked about it for a while, and they had talks with the original singer Lenny Wolf, who had retired, and he had retired the name officially. And you know, I thought to myself, well, he might say he's not interested now, but 6 months from now, once it gets going and promoters are excited about the band,
Yeah.
it is a pretty big name band. Maybe Lenny will be interested. So as we were working on it for the first like 9 months, I kept telling James, hey, call Lenny again, call Lenny again. And he kept not being interested, and gave the band his blessing, and he gave the band, you know, his blessing with me singing in it, which is great, which was, you know, I was honored. Because you know, I don't really deserve to be able to jump into, you know, Lenny's shoes, at least not what he sounded like when we were 20, you know. And but I'm doing all right with the stuff, I think, the older stuff. And the main thing for me is that it suits my style, it suits my voice. A
It
lot of
is.
bands
Yeah.
have asked me to come in and fill in over the years that just don't feel like me. So, you know, I don't feel like it's as a medium to older man, I don't really feel like that's what I want to do anymore. If I can just go out and sing it my way, but it works because it's similar, which is what I did with Montrose, then I'm happy. You know,
You have
and
a
it
very
just
70s style rock voice. Very the nice warm timbre. It's very, and
well,
it gets
maybe,
gritty.
I don't
You have a
know.
range. Well, just give my opinion, you know, for what it's worth, and it works. It's great. That's why I think a lot of artists like it, because
It's
that's the voice that a lot of your peers and our peers have grown up on. That style. It's not a dated voice by any means. It's a good voice, and there's not a lot of people that have that voice. And there's, you know what I mean. I just a reference point. You know, or the rockers from the '70s have some really great voices and powerful voices. They can be kind of gravelly, but then kind of have some highness to it, but kind of, you know, you really little flexibility to it. And that's kind of where it puts you in a spot where you know, it's good for you because you can do these bands like that, you know.
yeah, you know, I get it. You know, the beauty is for everybody, we have all these singing shows out there, and they can last for so long because every single person has a totally unique voice. There's always something a little bit different, no matter who you put next to each other. Yeah, and I have that point where you go past a certain point, and you got this grit, and it's
Yep.
there. And you
There's
know,
not a lot
and
of
it is a
singers.
lot like the guys in the
Mhm.
60s and early 70s. Yeah, for sure.
Which is what I love. So I mean, it's a great thing. That's probably why a lot of those guys had you sing with them in those bands. But your current stuff too, though, is it's great too because you use it together and it's still very contemporary. It's not a dated voice. It's just got that extra grit that a lot of singers just don't have nowadays. A lot of new singers, it's just very clean and it's kind of boring. You can kind of
Right
do more
on.
with
Well,
it.
it's kind of like, you're 19 years old and you got this sort of old blues man whiskey voice, and people are going, wow,
Pretty
you
cool.
sound like you've been singing 50 years because your voice is so ratty, and whatnot. And sometimes I wonder how it stays like that. It doesn't, but it just worked. It just have a raspy voice. I mean, Rod Stewart probably had the greatest male voice
Right?
tone of all time, right? And he was unbreakable. I've never seen him hit a foul note or
He still sounds pretty good. I was
anything.
just the other
So
night online for some reason I came across something actually, and I got sucked into watching him. Like something new, curious what he sounds like, and he still sounds really good. You know, at his age.
yeah,
So
I agree.
you have some, you have more years ahead of you that you can keep singing. The template's out there for you.
I'll take it.
Now,
I'll take
so
it.
like, right? So, but playing with these guys, they're a good band, a good bunch of musicians. How's the audience taking you guys? Being a newer band and newer members, but with an older band.
It's great. No,
Yeah.
it's been really, really good. I have because what's happened is, the audience for those bands, for Night Ranger and Slaughter and Dokken and
Hmm.
Lynch Mob and Kingdom Come and Firehouse and all these bands, it's kind of become, it's kind of, they're all in one giant group now in a way.
Yeah.
So through that group, with my other things that I've done over the years, they kind of all know me, or half of them kind of knew me already anyway. Half
Hmm.
of the Kingdom Come fans who are still out there going to shows and interested in buying stuff, you know buying new or looking for it. They I already have a little bit of an acceptance level with some of that crowd already, so they're like, yes, we want Kingdom Come back, and yes, Keith, it'd be cool to do it, kind of a thing. So that helps.
Yeah. But only
And
froze for a second.
every night I still go out there and shoot, it says my connection got unstable. Hopefully
It
it's
was just for,
okay.
just for a second.
But
It's okay.
okay. Every night I go out there on certain songs, especially when we've done, 13 shows in a row or something. And I'm like, I know there's always new people that want to come, and I have it in the back of my mind somewhere that I got to hit those notes and I got to hit them right, because, otherwise they're going to be like, this guy, blah, blah, blah. So, but it's been positive. It's
Yeah.
been positive. If you go through like some of the early live YouTubes or whatever was online, there's always those super fans that were there from the beginning, and they're gonna love the singer, and they say, oh well, without Lenny, you can't have Kingdom Come. But then there's, on the other side, there's 80% of the comments are like, this sounds great, this band is amazing, it's so glad these guys are back, la la la. And another thing is, like I said before, these original members in this lineup didn't really get together over all those years anyway. So it's really unique to have Johnny B. Frank back and to have Danny Stagg back.
Hmm.
Danny goes out and kills those guitar parts. He's like a blues purist tone guy. I don't know if you know the songs, but
I do.
every
No, I
guitar
do. I do.
lead
I
has
remember
that.
it was such a weird thing. Sorry. With them is everybody loved Kingdom Come, you know, and say like, but it was the whole like the Led Zeppelin thing, but that was like the whole denial of Led Zeppelin thing. So there's that weird backlash thing along with everything else. And it was just a shame because like Greta Van Fleet have actually embraced it. It's a little more accepting. I think the
Well,
fans
it
have
was
gone
a
on and they're
timing thing.
past it now. Oh yeah, it was, but
But
also
yeah,
back then though, Robert Plant probably wasn't accepting either Kingdom Come or anyone else at the time either. Now he's like, oh, those Scallywags. Now things are older, things are different nowadays. The forgiveness level, just being a good band. You know what I mean? The politics were just a little strong, I think, with the fans. So
looking at the big picture.
nowadays, everyone doesn't care. They just want to hear the music. At our age group, we just like to rock. You know what I mean? Which is a good thing. That's something I'm happy to see the band actually got back out again to get past that. You know what I mean? Because it's a good band to not be playing out.
Well,
you know?
absolutely. And it's what people didn't realize, like I said, was kind of the big picture where classical music went through it. It went through the feudalistic, and then finally the Baroque was sort of the beginning, and then the classic period, the Romantic, and then the 20th century, where everything's as mixed up and crazy as it can be. And then we go, we're done. That's the
Mhm.
imprint, the footprint. That's the whole range of classical music. And when Kingdom Come came out, rock was still doing it. Rock was still evolving. Everything was leaving the last generation in the dust. And I think the 80s
Yeah.
worldwide was the only time when Led Zeppelin wasn't cool to listen to, because everyone was on that heater of all, Tainted Love and the metal that happened in the 80s and all that. So it was like, now this is cool. And it was also a result of big marketing. But rock and roll reached everything it could do and kind of reached the end of the line. The Beatles did it on their own as a band. They went from Baroque to Romantic to the White Album to 20th century. And then rock did that too. And now it's just kind of like classical music. What I feel is going to happen is the Zeppelinators and the Beatles aiders, imitators, right, and all that stuff. That's going to become bigger and bigger and bigger, because everyone's just going to keep embracing those giants and that rock and roll imprint, which is just going to be the rock and roll imprint forever. So yeah, they missed it by a few years. If they would have came out and Kingdom Come would have came out in 2005, the world would have gone nuts for them.
Yeah.
Or in the
I
70s.
agree. I think we're just, they would have to compete with Zeppelin. That was the same thing, but the Zeppelin fans were probably, okay, this sounds too much like Zeppelin. I don't think at the time no one else had come out that similar. They were one of the first bands that actually have that similar influence that publicly. I think they were the first one to take the hit for, I think, too, But also did really well. So a lot of people obviously liked them very well, and then there was a weird battle. They had like a two-sided battle. It's like a two-headed monster, and then they had grunge. So it was a rough, you know what I mean? It was a supernova. They came in like fireball and then went down, So the fact that, and you still hear it nowadays, people conversations like, oh, Zeppelin, and then obviously that how it goes. Conversation can't go Kingdom Come within two sentences, someone say something like Zeppelin, and then two more sentences later it'll say Greta Van Fleet. Someone else say something else.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just really good guitar, and it's a really good band with some really good songs. And in the rock community now, all the bands are like, it's like less competition. And it was fun competition, but nowadays everyone's friends, the audience is friends. It's like it's almost like because it's a really neat community now. You know what I mean? Where it's the concerts and the shows, and it's really good. It's really come to a nice head. Didn't see it coming in the '90s though. After grunge, though, it was going to go this way.
Right, because the leaves were blowing down Sunset Boulevard, and there was like a cold wind, and you went, where is everybody? But no, it's at least marginally come back, and that's a good thing, with a resurgence from the past sound.
It does, yeah, and I think it's going to. I don't think there's going to be a grunge one coming back either. I just think the rock community has always been pretty loyal.
Not really, no. It's not a cycle that's going to be gone through. Yeah, no. Exactly.
Well, it's the love of rock and roll and love of guitars and stuff. And actually, while we're talking about it, so are you with this whole tour cycle? Are you guys going to actually maybe do some recording? Or are you kind of still playing by ear at some point?
Is it we've done, we've put down some ideas over the years, and then the COVID kind of happened, and two of the guys are in different cities. One guy's in Pittsburgh and one guy's in Jacksonville. So, even through the online trying to send stuff back and forth, we have a lot of ideas, but we haven't really put a record together yet. So we'll see what happens. Now that we're getting back together to play live, that should spark some interest again from everybody. And maybe in the studio later today, we'll actually we'll throw down a few things and see how they sound.
I'd love to hear that they now, like, new stuff with your voice on it and your influence. It would really be fun, really great. I think it'd be good. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people won't, not alone. So really, kind of songwriting with you now, because you've been in a lot of different projects, and you clearly write, you do lyrics and stuff. You have keyboard behind you, guitar. Like, what other instruments are you playing, and how are you doing songwriting? Do you like write your own songs and like share with bands? Like,
I played drums when I was growing up.
Right.
My dad gave me a trumpet when I was in third grade, and couple other instruments were around the house, but I really wanted to play drums. So, even though they didn't want me to play drums, eventually I got drums. Basement's back east, so I put down the basement. Even at that, it would probably rock the house a little too hard. But before they got home from work, I could go down there and go crazy, after school. And so I was okay at drums. I think things
Yeah,
that you learn and you study hard when you're a kid, you absorb much better than later in
totally.
life. So, I eventually did take lessons and I studied and I became a classical and orchestral percussionist and timpani player, which is a whole different thing. But so having that experience with and with drums,
Hmm.
I think has made the recording on my own life a lot easier for me. Even in the first days when we had to take a keyboard and sit there and MIDI just came out, and we had to get our kick and snare drum done like that
Oh,
before we got V drums and all that. I was doing that. But yeah, that's how I do it. I write
helped you
everything.
out. How many instruments are you? Can you play mostly enough to craft a song? Would you say well enough?
Absolutely. I mean, the guitars. I could do simple leads. Nothing too outstanding, but I can get the idea across pretty much. And
Strong
then
cowboy chords.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, the Brent, the original St. John guitar player, who's now been working with me well, we were working together for about a year before the COVID hit, and then he also lives
Mhm.
in Arizona in a different city, so we slowed down, and I don't really want to put anything out there until the live thing is healthy, because that's really the outlet
Yeah,
for a new St. John thing, is to be able to get out there in front of those fans and put it across. So I'm not in any rush, but there's a lot of great songs done, and I am excited about it. But Brent comes over sometimes, and he comes over my place for a week. And when he's here, I ask him to clean up some guitars that I've tried to write stuff on. I'll be like, "Hey, can you? Oh yeah, okay, I'll help you out."
but the point is you
So
can get it across, and like with the drums, you got the rhythm and the beats in your head and the lyrics. Like, I mean, you can compose a really good idea to form it instead of just like taking the lyrics and like creating it. I mean, it gives you a lot more freedom as a songwriter.
yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah, for sure. And I've always been more about that than playing live. I think I I've told several people that have asked me about it that I had my best year in 15 years, uh, being able to hang in the studio and do a lot more recording projects that I wouldn't have been able to do, and writing projects, because that really gets me going,
Well,
is
because you've
getting on the
written for
writing
TV
thing.
also, I mean, right? So you've done stuff for TV and film. You're not just
Yeah,
doing. How does that come
I
about that
have.
you're a rocker and
Well,
then all of a sudden you're doing like TV and film
well, it
stuff?
started accidentally. Just some stuff I had wound up in somebody's uh, collection of music that they send around to the musical directors for different
Mhm.
TV shows and film, and that's a community in its own, and where they all kind of know
That's
each
also,
other.
by the
And
way, the title of your biography, because everything you do, it started accidentally. The Keith St. John story.
right, perfect.
Because and then like each chapter could be like an adventure you stumbled into the dance
It kind of
studio. I
is.
mean, that's what I'm saying.
It really is. It really is. I was thinking of calling it Pinball Wizard, but that wouldn't be that Googleable, because I felt like pinball, like
Yeah,
going
you
all
could.
just bouncing off a flipper.
You'd
But
never beat all the Who references in Google, the algorithm. You'd never beat it. But that's not the
but it
title.
would be nice to put the word pinball in there. At
It would
least
be.
pinball's metal, man. It's made of metal. But
It is. It is. So I'm sorry, but
but
anyway,
yeah,
so your song thing, it's
yeah. Some of my stuff just wound up being in certain collections that went out to certain musical directors of some shows, and some of them were big syndicated talk shows and stuff where it was a repeat thing that would be in the theme and happen. And it wasn't something I tried to start. And then once I realized that there was not a big income, but a little bit of another extra trickling sort of monetary
yeah.
stream there, I became a little bit more interested. And here and there over the years, I dabbled into actually focusing on talking to some of these people and sending them more material. That's
I think it's
basically
great
what.
actually. I think it's you should
Yeah.
diversify and be your own media piece where you can do your bands, and you have side bands, and you know, distribute your own label because you get, you know, even, you know, a tiny record sale is 100% of which you wouldn't get off a big record sale anyhow. You're already making more money. You know what I mean? Or like, so all these little avenues are great, you know, and it's preparing yourself for different things in life, you know, and like a
We
COVID.
Aries, we always think about this. We always think about what you're saying, but we don't have the organizational skills of the earth signs and everybody else to like
I think it's just happening. I think you're
always
just
follow
functioning
through.
you're functioning so fast. You're not even thinking, you're just doing lots of things. They're just flowing out of you. I don't even think you're thinking. You're thinking, it's not just behind you already. You think, yeah, it was a good idea, wasn't it? I'm on to the next thing. You know, you're always
Well, being a
diversifying.
creative type keeps you distracted as well.
That's a
You
good
know,
thing.
or maybe not distracted is not the right word. Keeps you focused, you know, in a thing, you know, that you're every piece that you're working on, you always see these um, you always see these depictions of, you know, the classical authors, you know, and they're kind of Mozart or whoever, and he's in his pain, and he's locked up in his bedroom at 4 a.m. and he's writing. I mean, and that's the way it kind of is, even in rock and roll. You know, we kind of, you have that song and you got to get it out. And you got to get it out. Creative types understand that. I mean, that's how they were born. And the other people are like, dude, you need to get your shit together.
They're called managers. Uh,
Yes. Yes. And you
yeah,
say, that's why I'm paying you, buddy.
right. Because my motto also is, if you think, you stink. You just kind of just do things, and you know, it'll happen. So when you're writing songs, are you doing stuff like, do you just kind of like write a song and be like, oh, this is gonna like say this over COVID? You're like, oh, this could be a you know, a St. John song, or this could be, you know, Running Rain song. I'm gonna send to Doug. Like, how do you think about, oh, I'm gonna distribute this song to this person or to this, or for me, like, it's kind of a
That's
challenge,
pretty
right?
much what you just said is it. You know, I'm like, wow, this is along the lines of the new St. John sound, which has a very, very distinct sound, which I won't try to categorize it right now because it was unexpected that that stuff started flying out of me, but it did.
Yeah.
And
Save the
it's
internet for labeling. Just plenty of people will label your stuff for you.
cool. Great talking, my brother. Have a good one. Peace out.
Bye.